iPhone have in common with supply chain? Apparently a lot. I'm here with Andrew Jesse of Tradeshift to learn more. So Andrew, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about the trends in the digitally connected economy. What are you seeing right now?
Yeah, we're seeing a digital agenda and digital innovation everywhere. I think what we're seeing a lot of, and if you look at, I think McKinsey has said it first, that it's digital everywhere right now. It's pervasive in home with Netflix and streaming and security services and the like. It's pervasive in transport. And if you look at Uber and Lyft and places like that as well, and it's starting to become more and more pervasive in money as well, in the movement of money as well. I think we're seeing, and the latest estimates that we've seen is that there's going to be about 2.2 trillion spent on digital innovation over the next few years, and by the end of 2022. And what we're seeing is it's first kind of taken hold in at least from a banking perspective, in the retail business segment and more of the business to consumer segment. You're seeing diminishing foot traffic in banks. You're seeing people getting much more comfortable with online banking, but we haven't seen that extend significantly yet into the corporate banking world. But I think we're starting to see more and more investment in that area as we speak.
It seems at this point.
Absolutely. And when you start to look at businesses as well, you've seen the digital innovation start in the customer experience side of things. If you consider Salesforce and the app ecosystem they've built around themselves, then you start to look at employee experience and some of the stuff people like Workday have done in the space. And now we're starting to see businesses turn to supply chain experience as well. And I think that's one of the biggest trends we're seeing in digital innovation right now, is how can we start to better digitize our supply chain.
So let's talk supply chain a little bit. We're obviously Apple fans here between the watch, the iPad, the iPhone, but what does an iPhone or iWatch have in common with supply chain?
Yeah, it's interesting. When you think about the supply chain, there's so many component parts involved in a supply chain. You have sourcing and supplier selection. You have requisitioning and raising a request to actually purchase something as a business. You have the supplier onboarding and supplier information management. Am I doing business with reputable suppliers? You have the visibility and the inventory management side of things, which tie closely into demand planning. You have the invoice handling side of things. How do you get an invoice? How do you approve an invoice? And then finally, how do you pay invoices? Do you use your own cash? Do you use banks' cash, et cetera? And what you start to see is a proliferation of a lot of different applications that are out there. And a lot of businesses have digitized to some extent, but they've digitized in these point solution areas and point solution ways. So it's almost akin to, if you remember the Casio G-Shocks from back in the day, right? You've digitized, sure, it's a little bit easier to, exactly, they were great. But and it's easier to read. I've got a light so I can see at night, right? But if you want to digitize across all these different areas, you need like 7 different Casio watches, right? Whereas if you start to look at an iPhone and the app ecosystem they've developed, you've got one point of entry, and you can dial up and dial down solutions as you need. And it allows you to digitize your experience from making phone calls with native applications, using the native calculator on the phone as well, all the way to using phone or your phone and third-party apps like LinkedIn for networking with other people, for using your online banking applications, for making payments from your phone as well. And I think, when you look at the supply chain, it has still a ton of potential to develop that kind of platformification and kind of iPhone-like or iWatch-like app ecosystem model.
So where does Tradeshift ultimately fit into the ecosystem then?
So Tradeshift has developed what we call a platform as a service based model, which allow anyone from the largest corporates, the Fortune 500s of the world, all the way down to SMEs to enter into the purchase to pay or order to cash process with an area they want to begin to improve or digitize. It could be removing the exception process on invoices for an accounts payable organization, or it could be suppliers looking to access early payments through a platform as well. So what Tradeshift has developed is a platform and a business commerce network which allows businesses to come and register with the network, solve a point solution or a point challenge they may have today, but be able to dial up and dial down the use of additional applications, whether they be Tradeshift native applications or applications like our partnership with Coface for credit and risk, for businesses to come in and say, okay, I'm just about to onboard this new buyer. How are they looking from a credit perspective? Do they pass our KYC and AML checks? And can I comfortably onboard these businesses as well? So I think the Tradeshift platform really allows businesses to dial up and dial down and access new applications as they need to digitize their end-to-end purchase to pay or order to cash processes.
And what challenges are you specifically solving for in the industry with this platform as a service?
Yeah, so with the platform as a service-based model, we're making it easier for buyers and sellers to connect with everybody and all of the different partners, platforms, and utilities they may need to interact with as a part of their day-to-day processes. If you look at the average Fortune 500, I think the statistic is they access up to 15 different systems to be able to source a supplier, to onboard a supplier, to pay a supplier, to validate that supplier has been paid as well. So with Tradeshift, you're able to access one platform that can simplify the processes end to end and put in place best of breed applications, exactly as you might use with your iPhone to improve your day-to-day digital experience and make the most of your time on a daily basis.
So where is supply chain headed? What does the future look like?
I see the future of supply chain as more connected, more transparent and visible. And I think that the future of the supply chain is really going to institute a new level of trust and transparency. When you consider the political turbulence, the trade war turbulence, the climate change turbulence as well, people are going to be operating more broadly across different countries, different regions. They're going to need to be able to pivot and change direction and move towards different areas of value or mitigate risk by accessing new regions, new companies, new suppliers as well. And I think that connected ecosystem is going to be extremely important to building the trust and transparency so buyers and sellers can more easily do business together, but in a safe, trustworthy, and transparent way.
So what's next for Tradeshift, and maybe what emerging technology will you be focusing on over the next few years?
Sure. So I'd probably break it down to three core technologies that we're keeping an eye on. First, I would say, is with this digital innovation, there's a proliferation of data, right? And with data comes the ability to access artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities. I think one of our partners said extremely well that he believes organizations are going to compete in the future on the rate at which they're able to learn. Right? And by having data and a digital platform in place, you're going to be better able to apply artificial intelligence and machine learning to be able to accelerate learning within the organization and better compete. The second technology I'd say we're extremely focused on is, with this app store-based model, is Internet of Things, right? And the connectivity of different applications to a central digital platform, right? Being able to dial up and dial down different applications as businesses need, and to be able to share that information back and forth for businesses to more easily transact, sell more, and buy more in the most efficient ways as organizations. And then finally, I'd say the third core area we're keeping a really close eye on is distributed ledger and blockchain as well. I think we talked a bit about the challenges, right, and the changing environment and trust and transparency being so important. We think the distributed ledger technology has a lot of applicability to ensuring trust and transparency through a more efficient and effective set of infrastructure. And I think the applications can be pretty broad in terms of distributed ledger and blockchain technology as well. When you consider just visibility in the supply chain and the transparency of goods and services as they're being manufactured all the way to being delivered to the end buyer, that transparency is something that can be easily offered through blockchain technology, and even to the point of sustainable supply chain and enabling small to medium-sized businesses to better access capital. There are a lot of applications of being able to break smart contract invoices into thousands of tokens on the distributed ledger and the blockchain to not only allow the supplier of a buyer that might want to access early payment, but allowing a supplier to draw down on these tokens and offer early payment to their suppliers, which are many times in smaller countries, starved for liquidity and looking for easy ways to access capital at a really good rate. And blockchain technology, I think, will offer a lot of opportunity to have that transparency from buyer one, who may be an A-rated or large government agency who can offer the benefit of their strong credit rating and capital prices, to the suppliers of suppliers who need that liquidity most to start to grow. So I think those are the kind of three core areas we're looking at today into the future.
Absolutely. Well, it's nice to hear blockchain is finally moving just beyond a buzzword and becoming more applicable in the space. So Andrew, thank you so much for your insights today.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.
From Medici Studio, I'm Shannon Rossick.